Well, what a fantastic start to the video. John?
Hello. We're back in business.
Do you want to close that door, John?
Yeah. Special
Total chaos here.
special dog store day.
Yeah. Right. I hope that worked. Good to see you, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Interesting sort of lighting going on here. I think it's okay.
Got a glow? Yeah.
I'm glowing. I'm glowing. I'm like an angel. Right.
While you're introducing the first record, I might go and just move the curtain a bit.
Do that, John. Great. So, yes, it was record store day yesterday, and had very little impact on me and John.
Yeah.
I did get 2 records, one from a record shop, independent record shop in Faversham, which was deemed too small to be part of record store day, which does seem to be slightly not the point. But I did get the new Comet Is Coming album. Shabaka Hutchins and the 2 members of the band Soccer 66, 96. Here they are. Yes, another great sort of psychedelic jazz prog record, I guess. I've only actually listened to side 1 so far, and the track, the second track, which was Birth of Creation, was the track that was doing it for me yesterday. Yeah, just for me, by far the most interesting artist to come out of the UK jazz scene to date.
Definitely.
Yeah.
By far. And on Impulse, of course.
And on Impulse, indeed.
Yeah. Then we kind of moved over to, went back in time and also across the Atlantic. Well, no, across the Atlantic, across many seas, actually, to Masabumi Kikuchi. And this might be a record I've shown before. We're going very dark now, Mike. That's better. And this is an album called Wishes, which was recorded in 1976. Masabumi Kikuchi was a keyboard player who played electronic keyboards mostly in the 70s and then moved over to more acoustic music with people like Paul Motion in the 90s and noughties. And he was intended to be the keyboard player when Miles came out of retirement in the mid-60s, but it never happened. So it's got a very Miles-ish flavour with Masabumi, Taramasa Hino, Steve Grossman, Dave Liebman, Reggie Lucas, Anthony Jackson, and played the track Auroral Flare, which I seem to remember on a blog a while ago was voted the best ever Cosmic Groove track. Interesting.
We're
We're very dark.
We've gone very dark. Can you switch that light on, John?
This one here.
You've also gone. You've gone very tall, and we're not seeing most of your head. It's total chaos. I think we might. Should we keep going? Go on.
Yeah, keep on going.
Keep on going.
Tell me
Press the
what
light
it
on,
is.
John. It's just by up a bit.
What, there?
Up to the next level. There you go.
Yes.
Ah.
Fantastic. We're getting to blooper characters. Will you start again?
No, we'll keep
Let's
going.
carry on.
Right. So the other record that has appeared on Record Store Day, which was yesterday, was this, which is Weather Report Live in Tokyo. I have to say I wasn't really even aware of this album until I got one of the emails from Pure Pleasure, who are one of the kind of really high quality audiophile reissue labels, saying that you could buy this, but it sort of seemed to be really expensive. They're reissuing it. And so I just went online and found a really good price for an original copy. And it's a fantastic album. It's sort of Weather Report from 1972, with the lineup that featured obviously Wayne Shorter, Joe Zawinul, but also Miroslav Vitus, Eric Gravatt, who I have to say I hadn't really paid attention to, and Don Rumau on percussion. But Eric Gravatt's drums were absolutely stunning. And the whole album is, yes, it's kind of like the missing link from Electric Miles to latter-day Weather Report, but it's got such a sort of strong sense of kind of the coming out of Bitches Brew in a silent way. Very abstract, very improvisatory, really exciting, really out there. And you saw the band.
I saw this band around this time, yeah, live. They were very loud and very aggressive. I mean, fantastic drummer, Grabber, who he got stage fright later on and couldn't play, and actually ended up working as a prison guard, I think, or something like that. Very sad. He was a great drummer.
Yeah, and there's basically 3 sides are kind of medleys, and we listened to the medley which started with Vertical Invader, going to Seventh Arrow, TH, and ending up with Doctor Honoris Causa, or Causa.
Which was written for Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, brilliant. Great, highly recommended stuff.
So from Miles influenced and in many ways went to Get Up With It, actually, isn't it? Get Up With It, which was a kind of, wasn't actually a compilation, but it was released during Miles's lifetime, but it was kind of released during his kind of retirement years, and played the track M2 off here, which is a different track to the other track we played last session called M2 with Reggie Lucas, Pete Cozy, Michael Henderson, Al Foster, etc. as well. Sounded quite weird, sounded very dark and muffled, actually. It was quite not at all how I played it myself at home a few days ago, and it sounded very different. So I don't know what I did. Maybe I need to check my stylus or something.
Maybe I need to check my stylus. Yeah, I guess, well, what the connection might have
Pete Cozy.
It was Pete Cozy, yeah. Rotary Connection. Hey Love, again, absolutely wonderful record if you don't know it. Has the original version of I'm the Black Gold of the Sun. But in fact, we were listening to Song for Every Man, which is a Terry Callier tune. Terry appears later on in the session. Incredible Charles Stepney production, great vocals, really sounding like nothing else of the time. So yeah, really enjoyed that.
Something about the psychedelic kind of period and the kind of epic kind of sounding vocals as well. Went for Jefferson Airplane after Bathing at Baxter's, which has always been one of my favourite Jefferson Airplane records, and played the classic track Yoon Me and Punil off here. Great singing from Marty Balin and Grace Slick.
Yeah, but then a great track afterwards.
Yeah, and we played a little bit of the track afterwards, which I can never remember what the name is, which is called A Small Package of Value Will Come to You Shortly, which was very, I think, very Zappa influenced, that track, actually, very much music concrete kind of thing.
Well, whilst I guess the only vague connection with the next record was things that sounded quite different and a bit strange. This is a release by a Dutch artist called Roland Langestraat that has appeared on Bandcamp. I think this is in its 2nd or 3rd pressing now. The album's called Searching, and Ronald basically recorded this album on a 4-track in 1984, plays everything on it, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of quite seductive and interesting music to listen to. It's got quite a sort of jazzy, slightly blue-eyed soul vibe to it, but also this kind of interesting electronic thing going on. And yeah, I really like it, actually. We listened to the track called In the Middle of the Night. Yeah, check it out. It's definitely still available on Bandcamp.
Going bang up to date, and also something about the mixture of soulfulness and electronics, and went for the new Lamb Chop record, which came up about 10 days ago. And picture of Kurt without a hat on, which is quite a rarity on the front. And he's carrying on a little bit from what he did with the last album with Flotus, where he's using auto-tune in a kind of creative way and using synth programming, but also real instruments mixed in, working with the guy from Bon Iver, whose name I can never quite remember, in co-production. Yeah, really.
I can't remember his name either.
Really interesting record. Very, very good one to listen all the way through to. Great production as well.
Yeah, no, it sounded great.
Sounds like Lamb Chop, but also doesn't sound like Lamb Chop at the same time. So it's an interesting mix.
Another fairly bang-up-to-date album, but from a venerable artist, is the new David Crosby, which really actually is a collaboration with Becca Stevens, Michelle Willis, and Michael League, who's from Snarky Puppy and also is the producer. and they've sort of collaborated and co-written quite a few of these tunes. It's fantastically well produced. Their voices just blend beautifully together. And anybody who likes If Only I Can Remember My Name, I think will like this album. There's a couple of jams, one from 1974 and one from 1967, where there were kind of original vocal ideas that have kind of been developed by the group. There's also a great different kind of version of Woodstock, but we listened to the first track on side one, which is called Glory, and it sounded pretty glorious.
David Crosby and Becca Stevens were actually quite similar. They've got a similar kind of range. So from one old member of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young to another one, really. And this was reissued. This is Neil Young's Comes a Time, which was seen as being a kind of follow-up to Harvest. But it all never sounded right to the point where the legend is that Neil bought 200,000 copies of the record and turned them into roofing materials on his farm because he hated the sound so much. This has, anyway, finally got a proper mastering and a proper sounding record. Sounds amazing.
Really does.
There was always suspicion actually that there was something wrong with both the CD pressing and the LP pressings before. And yes, and we played the track Going Back, and it really sounds, if you like this record, get this new pressing from 2017. It sounds a real revelation.
It sounded utterly contemporary.
Yeah,
actually.
completely.
Didn't sound like it was recorded in 1972 or
Definitely.
whatever. Right, we definitely had a break for a Portuguese tart at this moment.
Yeah.
You'll be glad to know. And returned with a track which I originally had on a 7-inch reggae pre-release single, but which I think got stolen or lost along the way. So I bought a new 12-inch version of Philip Levi, who was one of the Saxon Sound reggae sound system crew from the early 80s, and really was the innovator of the kind of fast talk, fast chat style of reggae emceeing. And the track's called My God, My King, Me God, Me King. Fantastic tune. And so there was him, there was Tipperary, Smiley Culture, I think it was Asher Senator, Daddy Cult. There's a whole bunch of sort of southeast London Saxon Sound reggae crew who really kind of changed the face of reggae in the UK actually at this time. Yeah, it sounded great.
And on Mango.
And it's on Mango. Yeah.
I used to spend a lot of time in the Mango studio office on that time. So sticking with some reggae, went for a bit of back in time actually, went for some Augustus Pablo. This is from the album Rockers Meet King Tubbers in a Firehouse, which actually came out first in Canada actually rather than in Jamaica as far as I can tell. And Rockers All Stars playing on it, usual suspects, Robbie Shakespeare, Chinner, all the other ones, and played the track Dub Innocent Matthews Lane Arena, which has always been one of my favourites of this, with some great trombone playing from Vinnie Gordon.
Vinnie
Well,
Gordon.
I think it's Gordon. It doesn't actually say it's him.
Sounds very, very, very Vin Gordon. Who then also features on the Babylon soundtrack from the 1980, I think it was, 79 film, Dennis Bovell production. We listened to Beefy's tune. Sounded fantastic. Just it's a really kind of great mix of kind of jazz and reggae with this kind of UK flavour that was happening around this time. Quite a few of the musicians who also were part of Aswad, part of this sound. But yeah, sounded great.
So sticking with Dennis Bovell, but moving into a slightly different kind of arena, went for the EP by the Slits, which didn't have a name actually, but features the track Man Next Door on it, and their kind of take on that, which was who's Man Next Door originally by?
Was it Burning Spear?
No, not Burning Spear. Anyway, I remember the guy who sang with Massive Attack quite a lot.
Oh, Horace Andy.
Horace Andy, yeah, it was a Horace Andy track I think originally.
Ah.
Yeah, and kind of so you've got a kind of mixture here of a kind of punky singing style, mixed up with kind of fairly deep kind of roots sounding Dennis Bovell production underneath it. It sounded really good actually. A lot of interest in the Slits at the moment. They're kind of they're reissuing their first album, and I think just generally people as a cultural
Noticing them.
phenomenon. Yeah.
I must just mention, because I only ever mention this at the end of extremely long videos, by which time most people have stopped watching, is tune into the All Points radio show. The link will be below, if you like the kind of music we're talking about. Right, this is...
If you like the kind of music we're talking about, you're possibly bonkers, actually. Given the range of stuff we've covered.
This is Blackbeard, which is another moniker for Dennis Bovell, and this is a dub album he did called Iwa Dub. Again, featuring people like Angus Gay, Tony Robinson, also John KPI on guitar. Really, again, sort of UK dub album from 1980. We're in 1980 zone. We listened to the track called Electrocharge.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing those things together and how different the UK reggae sound was to Jamaican sound at that time. So crossing the Atlantic and kind of moving into thinking about the same kind of time, really, more than anything else. Connection here. The band ESG, who were four sisters, weren't they?
Yeah.
From New York. Very, very stripped down, basic sound. I mean,
Scroggins,
that's right, the Scroggins sisters. This was actually co-produced by Martin Hammett from Factory Records, and came out here almost kind of on its own. Nobody really knew quite what, and they came over and did a few kind of PAs in the UK as well. And it's really, you're talking about bass and drums and a bit of conga and some vocals, and that's it, basically. I mean, it's kind of related to hip hop, but not really hip hop. It had its own kind of sound, really.
Yeah.
So ESG, and I played the track Moody off here.
It seemed to link very nicely to this 12-inch single, which a rare appearance from the Clash on one of our sessions, but the Magnificent Dance, which was the sort of dub instrumental version of the Magnificent Seven. Yes. And again, stripped down bass, kind of not very well played, but kind of really great sounding congas, sort of dubby 12-inch mix. It sounded great, actually.
Could actually have been Bramble the dog playing the congas. Crossing the Atlantic, back the other way again, and the band Luscious Jackson, who made 2 records on Grand Royal, which was the Beastie Boys label. Again, another band mostly made up of young women. And really great album, this actually. And this and the second one were kind of overlooked very much in the UK. I don't remember anybody playing them really over here as well.
No.
And played the track City Song off here, which is kind of like obviously a hip-hop influenced, a few samples off reggae tunes on it as well, which is quite interesting as well with the connection here. Yeah, and very, very bright. I'll show colour.
Yeah, beautiful bit of vinyl. That.
This was the original colour. Some very, very blue vinyl.
Staying in the kind of early 90s hip-hop arena, I just recently picked this up, actually, which is Don't Sweat the Technique, which I have to say itself is a fantastic track. But a double vinyl Eric B. and Rakim album, we listened to the track Rest Assured, which sampled a track that I will share in a second. But yeah, just excellent flow of lyrics from Rakim, and great use of samples and production and a fantastic sound overall.
He was the master of flow.
Yeah.
Moving back a couple of years to some more kind of soul and funk really direction. In the Cameo album Cameosis, Cameo were famous really for later on when they stripped down their sound and did songs like She's Trained and what else did they do?
Well, Candy, and
Candy,
course,
which is great.
Yeah.
And this was slightly earlier. This is when they were still a kind of a band with a horn section and everything else, and played the track We're Going Out Tonight. Incredibly crisp production sound.
Beautiful.
And really nice sound on this record as well. They were one of the bands I saw twice in late 70s and then in the early 80s. And in the late 70s, they had a full kind of about 15 people on stage, and when they came back, they had about 3 people on stage. With a couple of DX7s.
Definitely, this was the period when it was you could make it as a band as an 8-piece with a 3-piece horn section, and the kind of originators of that sound probably were Earth, Wind and Fire, and this is one of their early albums that my daughter bought for me for my birthday, which was fairly recently. I've always wanted this album. It's really great, actually. We listened to the track Fair But So Uncool. Yeah, just very jazzy, very funky, kind of open music.
Still Charles Stepney then as well.
I don't think it is Charles
Is it not
Stepney.
so? No.
I don't think it was.
No.
No.
Okay. Next up was I think my favourite bass introduction to any track I've ever heard, actually, which is the Flora Purim record. I think it was either first or second of her. It was the second of her solo albums, I think, on Milestone. Flora Purim, Brazilian singer, worked a lot with her husband Ayrton Moreira, and played the track "Open Your Eyes, You Can Fly," which was actually written by Corea. Fantastic bass playing by Alfonso Johnson, who just has a great time on here. Production by our old friend George Duke. Very good album. Some of her albums on Milestone are a bit kind of, okay, but this one's a really, really good one. Highly recommended. Brazilian influence funk, really.
Yeah, sort of the kind of place where funk and jazz meet is very well represented on this compilation that Blue Note put out from the Mizell brothers. And we listened to the Bobby Humphrey Blacks and Blues track, which was the original source for the Eric B. and Rakim track that we heard. It sounded great. I mean, this is a great album, particularly if you don't have tracks like Wind Parade and Change and anyway, it's excellent. Get it.
We've had a bit of a running theme over recent sessions with Curtis Mayfield.
Yes.
So keeping up with that. Went from his album Got to Find a Way, which was really the last of his albums, I think, to be absolutely solid all the way through, and played the track Mother's Son off here, which is kind of funky mid-tempo track. I mean, to be honest, even the later Curtis albums, they've all got one or two tracks on it which are just great as well. I mean, if you don't know Curtis Mayfield, you just dig in almost anywhere up to the mid-70s, really. And you'll find something that's absolutely brilliant.
So there's been a lot of excitement and hype and fanfare about this album, possibly slightly unjustified, because whilst it is a brilliant album, and I guess it's the first time on vinyl for many of these tracks. In fact, it's not really the missing Marvin Gaye album.
No.
But it does feature a lot of tunes that fell into the cracks between What's Going On and Let's Get It On. And yeah, I mean, the title track, You're the Man, is absolutely fantastic. Features in two different versions here. I mean, you can never have too much Marvin, and getting more Marvin Gaye out, particularly now, seems extremely just what the doctor ordered. We listened to the track The World Is Rated X, which sounded fantastic. So yeah, if you don't have these tracks on CD, then absolutely, it's really nicely mastered. Sounds great.
It's also worth getting. I mean, we don't usually pick up CDs, but it's also worth getting the expanded edition of Let's Get It On CD, double CD release, but it's got a lot of those tracks on and some other ones as well. So, but they're sounded great. That does sound very nice on vinyl. So I think we had a break for some sheep's cheese.
Yeah.
After that as well, and I need to first of all thank Roger Coleman, who sent me one of the printed copies of his Sun Ra Sundays. Roger, on his blog New Voyage, did an amazing thing over years of every Sunday writing in depth about Sun Ra, and his friend Sam and collaborator Sam Bird has done a great job in putting all these together in book form. So I'm really grateful for these. I'd actually done a cut and paste job myself, but it was only in digital files. So anyway, thank you very much, Roger. And in tribute to that, and to Sam, actually, who has his own blog where he talks about Sun Ra as well, thought I'd play the track Dancing Shadows off Nothing Is, the album Nothing Is, which Sam recently said he thought was the best ever John Gilmore tenor saxophone solo. And I have to say I do agree with him. Actually, it's an absolutely brilliant record. So this early 70s, from a set of albums that were recorded on tour of American college tours, and it's the classic kind of lineup of John Gilmore, Marshall Allen, Pat Patrick, Robert Cummings and so forth. This is actually pretty good. If you're not a Sun Ra kind of addict, this is not a bad album to start with, actually. It's got some very, very good stuff on it. So yeah, Sun Ra.
Some great drumming.
Great drumming from Clifford Jarvis, yeah.
Yes.
Who ended up in teaching in a community project in East London.
Yes. Roger's last video also was bigging up another book, not a book that he'd written, but a book that John then gave me for my birthday, which I can't remember who it's by.
It's by John Corbett.
Yeah.
He's a very good writer, trumpeter, so I think he plays trumpet as well. Right, he runs a gallery called Corbett and Dempsey in New York as well.
And it's basically a succession of essays about different albums from the 70s in chronological order. And it's absolutely brilliant. Just started reading it the last couple of days.
Really good stuff. Yeah.
Highly recommended. Yeah, well, I guess we'd entered the jazz realm. This is an album that I picked up from a record shop in Margate, actually, recently. This is Jackie's Bag, Jackie McLean, featuring Donald Byrd, Sonny Clark, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones on one side, and then Blue Mitchell, Jackie McLean, Tina Brooks, Kenny Drew, Paul Chambers, and Art Taylor on the other, and it was the second side and the track Appointment in Ghana that we listened to.
It's just a great track.
Great track.
Love Jackie McLean. Moving, I think, for the first time in one of our sessions to Booker Little, the trumpeter Booker Little, who died very young when he was 23. And this is an album which has been out under different names. And this came out on Island Records in the UK, slightly oddly. And it's called they called it the Legendary Quartet album, with indeed a legendary quartet with Wynton Kelly, Scott LaFaro and Roy Haynes on it, which is pretty good, really. It's a very nice record. Got a great kind of, difficult to describe. Doesn't sound like really any of the other trumpeters around at the same time. Very kind of burnished kind of tone, actually. Really nice music, with obviously a great rhythm section with Scott LaFaro and Roy Haynes on here. So if you haven't heard Booker Little, he played a lot with, made a lot of records with Eric Dolphy in a short period of time. Then unfortunately checked out when he was 23, which is very sad.
Yeah. I guess the connection was trumpet players who checked out early. And this is Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. I mean, bit of a classic here. We listened to Moaning, and I'm talking about Lee Morgan, was the trumpet player who checked out early. Yeah, I mean, just a fantastic album. And Art Blakey, Jamie Merritt?
It's Jamie, I think so. Or Jamie or whatever, yeah.
Bobby Timmons, piano, Benny Golson, tenor sax. Yeah.
Great Benny. I always forgotten how great the Benny Golson tenor solo was in that track.
Yeah.
Actually. I think probably if people were thinking about what is kind of modern jazz as it was, they'd either think of that or kind of blue, really, as being typical of what it was all about.
Yeah.
Then moved in, recently reissued, has been Chick Corea's, I can't remember what it's called actually. Completely forgot the name of the record. Anyway, he made a record with Blue Note in the 60s with Miroslav Vitus and Roy Haynes again. And the same band reformed back in the 80s, I think, or maybe late 70s. Yeah, early 80s. And recorded a couple of albums for ECM, one live, and this other one, which has got half of the record is trio improvisations, the other half is reinterpretations of Monk tunes. And although it's not an obvious connection, Corea does a great job with Monk, actually, really sense. And it's a great sounding record as well, with Miroslav making his second appearance in the session as well. And played around midnight, which is always a winner, really, from that. So on ECM, early 80s, goodbye, that one.
Not entirely sure how we ended up with Sylvester here.
No.
Might have had a break again.
I think that was
So Sylvester being known really as for his track You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, and being on the New York dance scene in the late 70s, and being kind of quite an out artist, really. We listened actually to the one sort of more sort of down-tempo track. He tended to work with, you can see actually on the back here, two female vocalists, one of whom was Martha Wash, and I can't remember what the other one was called, also known as 2 Tons of Fun. And we listened to a great cover of a Burt Bacharach tune. I think it's I Took My Strength From You. Was it something I said? I will just check. It is I Took My Strength From You, which just has a fantastic kind of coda section, which really reminds us of Barry White. And some just beautiful falsetto vocals, very, very soulful, and kind of just something you'd probably miss if you didn't search for it.
He was in London a lot around that time, but I never saw him do a proper live gig. I just saw him do PAs at various places, yeah. So another recurring theme is Barry White, actually, and that's been had on the Soundcloud. Barry White and Curtis Mayfield have been our artists of choice, really, a little bit. So played Dreaming off the second Love Unlimited record, which has got a hideous cover, really, even by Barry White standards.
Yeah, that's
White
pretty bad.
gold. And this was the one which featured Satin Soul on it and various other kind of classics as well. So Love Unlimited, you can't really go wrong. Really.
No. Yes, and here is that band, 2 Tons of Fun, featuring Martha Wash and Izora Armistead as the other vocalist. Fantastic vocals. Again, we listened this time to a Sylvester penned track called Taking Away Your Space. There's a fantastic tune called Just Us on this album as well. But yeah, this is absolute classic late 70s New York style dance music.
So I was actually prepared to do quite a big Scott Walker tribute, but we didn't get there really. But right at the end, I mean, we lost Scott Walker since the last session. Massive. I love Scott Walker's stuff right through, actually. I know people don't like his experimental albums, but I love them too. But anyway, this is going right back to Scotch 2, which was the second of his 4 solo records for Phillips, and played the track Plastic Palace People. I mean, if you haven't heard Scott Walker, I think it's ironic, really. He had to die for people to really realise how influential he'd been, really. And this was kind of like a coming out of a kind of late 60s, slightly kind of interesting kind of pop sound in the UK. Yeah, kind of very orchestral, kind of very dramatic, really as well. But yeah, really miss him, actually.
I think it was the baritone voice that led me to play a track from Terry Callier, second appearance from a Charles Stepney production on Cadet. We listened to You Gonna Miss Your Candyman, which is a very haunting track, but also kind of has some quite epic moments. But this is if you don't know this album, What Colour Is Love, absolute classic.
Yeah, really good one. He's a great singer, Terry Callier. We saw him once. It was a weird gig, though, wasn't it?
We did, yeah.
A very strange gig, very noisy audience.
Yeah.
And this arrived. This is the last I could play this. Really, was it arrived today or yesterday rather?
This was your record store day.
This is my record store
arrival.
purchase or arrival, even though I didn't buy it on record store. This is the second half of Bill Frisell, the guitarist Bill Frisell duo with Thomas Morgan, great bass player, recorded at the Village Vanguard. This is called Epistrophe after the Monk tune, and played this for the first time. Actually, played the track Lush Life, which sounded great. Actually, I mean, he's a wonderful guitarist, and this duo I think might almost be his ideal kind of setting, really. On ECM, double vinyl, it came out yesterday, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. So
Very
that's
nice.
it.
Yeah,
That's how we finished off.
there was nowhere to go after that. So, well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the people who comment and people who subscribe and stuff. And we'll keep doing these videos if you keep watching them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of love to everybody.
Yeah. Bye.